I want to have a conversation about choking, specifically choking during sexual intimacy. I've had a couple people ask me about that, and there's a lot of people that like to incorporate choking during intimacy. It can be exciting, it can be fun to cut off my oxygen, and it's supposed to take sex to, you know, new heights, right? This like sexual euphoria, but also it can feel like my partner is dominating me and controlling me, almost like, 50 shades of grayish type of stuff, where women like it, it could just sort of, it could be domineering and just, I want to feel like my man is in control of me, or I want to submit to my partner and, just have his hands around my neck a little bit. So, hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And what is it with the attraction to choking and that little bit of aggression during intimacy? How exciting is that? To fully submit to my partner and allow him to dominate me in that way, and I give up control. And meanwhile, cutting off oxygen for a little bit, and that just increases our sexual euphoria. But there's so much power in that. And so a lot of women are really drawn to that. Men are very drawn to that as well, where men also like choking, and it's supposed to give them a greater orgasm. Um, Actor David Carradine actually passed away. I guess while he was in Thailand, he was doing this to himself. I think, where he had cut off his his oxygen, and I guess it went a little too far. So I don't know, how he felt going out, but whatever. But that's just one of those things where it's like, people want to try things to increase the amount of euphoria when they get an orgasm. That's another, in addition to being submissive, there's also, supposed to be a greater euphoria that's connected to. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's something that you want to try. You want to try on your partner, but anytime you're trying anything such as choking or things like that, that can be potentially life-threatening, such as how David Carradine found out, you want to be able to communicate with your partner, communicate with, about boundaries, and, just making sure that, you have a safe word and things like that. And you're also very clear on the type of experience that you want it to provide for you. You're not doing it to keep your partner in a relationship with you, but it's more or less an experience that you want to try, where it's maybe something that you want to relinquish control. And so maybe you want to be choked just a little bit, just put your hand around my neck just a little bit. Don't get wild, and you can talk about how that looks for you and your partner. Or if you really want it, a good thrashing, around the throat. But again, you guys need to have a safe word and be safe about it. And while you're doing it, of course, it's also something that I would not encourage you try with a partner who chokes you outside of the bedroom. So, again, if you're involved in a relationship with a partner and you guys get into an altercation and they choke you out, that is not a partner that I would want to try that with, or that I would recommend you try that with during intimacy, because they can't be trusted. Also, always, always, always have a conversation about this with your partner. Don't just spring it on them, and things like that. So, but, let me know what you guys think. And just as a little aside, I remember, I had talked with my mom, it was maybe a few years ago, about choking, because she knows some of the stuff, like, subject matter that I've talked to people about, and things like that. Um, and it's, what do you think of, what would you think if your husband, wanted to choke you during intimacy? And she said 911. If he put his hands around my neck, 911. So that's why I say always make sure you talk to your partner. You don't want to be, kind of how my mother was, where she was like, I'm calling the police and he's got to get up out of there. And so, always, there's fun ways that you can enhance what's going on in the bedroom. um, I don't know about the euphoria stuff, and again, even if that were the case, I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know how much of it you would want to seek out whenever you're thinking of whenever I'm talking to people that are looking for ways to increase euphoria during intimacy, especially men. What I have found, and perhaps this is what David Garridine found out too, is that you have to keep doing more and more and more of it to chase that high, so to speak. It's just like, and it's not meant to be disrespectful to anybody. I've mentioned David Carradine, no disrespect to him or his family, but in counseling, many men who have had challenges with sex, with addiction, and I don't know if that's what he had, but they always need more to achieve that. And that I think Love and Marriage Huntsville, which I don't watch, but I saw a clip of that. There's an excellent clip of you know um, the husband talking about how he needs sex multiple times a day, and he just needs more and more of it. And whenever you're needing more and more, it's no longer about sex anymore. It's really, in my opinion, when you need stuff more and more like that professionally, in my opinion, it's more of escapism and avoidance. You're really trying to have this feeling where you can escape whatever. It's a problematic coping skill, and you're basically trying to escape problems that you've got going on in life. So it becomes less about sex, intimacy, and connection or feeling good, and more so about escapism and avoidance. Hope that helps. Thanks so much.